Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of the bathroom tiles. Today we're going to be tackling base color. So this is where we left off on the last part. Let's move some of this down a bit. Alright, now we're going to move all the way back as usual. And we're going to be up here. And we're going to start with a uniform color. And this should be 0.085. We're keeping this one at 2K because this is going to be our base. And it's going to be driving into the main blend. So let's plug this blend into our base color. And let's just kind of make sure that's straight. I think that is straight because you can see here that the strand here is straight. Okay. I always like to leave my starting uniform color there, just in case. I want to see what it looks like without color, especially when working with roughness. It makes it easier than having color information on there. Alright, so we're going to start with the clouds too. Then we're just going to blur that a little bit. Right now we're just trying to add some surface noise just so the tiles aren't all perfectly one color. Should go through an auto levels first, then blur. And then we're going to do a transform 2D. And I divided it twice. So this is the starting position, and I just divided it twice to get more tiling. And honestly, this is not going to be as noticeable because we're going to push this through a vector warp grayscale. And we want to pull from our distanced tile mask. Because we're not worried about grout right now because it's not going to be we're going to do the grout on top of the tiles. So whatever information is like here or in between the tiles, we don't care about because we're gonna color over that. Okay. Now, as our usual workflow, we're gonna have an HSL up here. We're gonna pull from it. And then from that, we're gonna do another HSL. And we're just making this one slightly brighter. So this one's set to 0.505. And if you guys notice, I did turn this HSL down to 16 by 16 by going up here in the output size, and I explained this in the previous dark tiles video, in the base color, I believe. And we're making this -7. Alright. Then after this, we're going to need another blend. And we're going to use fractal sum base node. And then we're going to put that through a levels. And this is going to connect onto the bottom. And then we're just going to keep pulling from this. into another HSL. We're just going to be repeating this over and over. And this one should be set to 0.55 on the lightness. So this is going to be extra bright. So let's see what we have so far. So we started with just a base color, a uniform color. And then here you can see we added our clouds too, and we tiled it a little bit to get more variation. So we went from this to that. It's very subtle because the tiles do look like they're one color, but there's always variation. And then here we add these little tiny specks, tiny little details all over. And you can see it on the tiles now. So let's continue. Another blend. And all these blends are set to copy. So this one as well. Then we're going to pull from the original fractal sum base here. And we're going to invert it so we can reuse it. Then that's going to go through away levels. And that'll go into the bottom. And then we'll just continue from here. And this HSL would be darker. So 0.45 on the lightness. So now we have bright spots and dark spots. Okay. And if anything looks off, I always tend to come back after and tweak it. I don't want to get bogged down too much at the start because when you start adding a bunch of colors, it's going to look different. All right. Now we're going to do another blend here. And then we're going to pull from up here as usual. And then this one's going to be slightly brighter at 0.52. And now okay, so now here is where we add a little bit of our discoloration because of the dried up, water and just overall grunge and dirtiness. So let's start with a grunge galvanic larch, something like this. And you see here the settings. Then we're going to divide this one with the transform 2D. And then we're going to put that through a histogram range. Then we're going to blur it a little bit. Then we're going to vector warp it. And then that's going to go through a levels. And now you guys should know what will go into that vector. It's going to be the usual guy. I think I gave you guys the wrong level settings. It should be this guy. But I think we're actually going to boost this up to 0.25. So now you can see the before and after It's very, very subtle, but it's there. Because this is going to be our grime. And, you know, it ain't that dirty. If you wanted to turn it up, you can kind of see it changing here. Maybe if we make this brighter. There we go. You'll be able to see it better. But I don't want it to be this noticeable. It's supposed to be very, very subtle details. And you can play around with it if you want to make it more noticeable. Alright. Next, we have a Grunch Leaky Paint. And we're going to transform 2D that. And we just divide it by 2. Here we added another layer. So you can see these details, which are mainly for the roughness, but I didn't want it to also be seeing in the color a little bit. So here you can see the difference, because that's where the most white, the brightest spot is. So before and after. And again, just very, very subtle differences make a big difference. Okay, now for this part, we're going to start with a grunge map 005. We want something like this. We're going to divide it a couple times. Then we're going to warp it. With a Perlin noise, so that they're not completely going down like this. We want to warp it a little bit. Because when water runs down tiles, you know, they kind of move around and warp. And then we're going to go with the clouds too. And then we're going to transform that. Divided by 2. Then we're going to run this through our levels. Just to kind of get more of the more contrast. Then we're going to blend these two together with a multiply. And we're using the clouds to kind of get rid of some of the, to reduce the amount of these wavy boys here. So that it's more noticeable in some areas and less in others. Otherwise it would just look kind of uniform, dripping down the tiles completely, and then we don't want that. Vector warp grayscale. Let's get our usual guy from the flood fill. Okay. Then I'm gonna do a levels after that. I don't know why my mind blanked for a second. And then we're gonna blend that. Nothing too special going on right now, except just very subtle variation differences. Again, very, very subtle. Then we'll do a grunge spots. Then we're gonna divide it. Now this is something cool that I found out for this. When we're trying to do like leaky or something dripping down, we're gonna use a slope blur and then a gradient linear 1. If you notice, the gradient linear 1 is your standard gradient. It starts white at the top, black at the bottom. And then we're gonna put that on the slope blur grayscale. And what it's gonna do, it's going to pull it in the direction of this gradient. That's what we're plugging into the slope. So you can see here that it looks like it's running downward. If we were just, don't do this part, if we were to put a 2D transform and then rotate this, you'll see the way these guys like change. So like let's say we went this way. Then now it's like running in that direction. So yeah, very cool. Then I do a little sharpen afterwards because I wanted them to be a little sharper. Then we're going to run that through our levels. And then we are trusty blend. Let's not forget our HSL. So now you can see them right there. We can maybe make it a little bit brighter. There we go. Just a little bit. Or a little bit more noticeable. Then we're going to do a grunge map 2 to get kind of these really nice details here. And then we just divide it by 2. I guess I left this one the same, but I'll just leave it in there. Let's see where the change is. Oh, you can see it right there. Okay, then we're going to do a grunge spots dirty. Divide that by 2. Just going to grab these together. Let's look at this detail now. You can see it right there. And all of these will come together with the roughness. That's when we'll really see it in here. And that'll give it some really nice contrast, some really nice detailing. Okay, then we have grunge spots, slope blur, set to mid mode. Then we have our trusty Perlin noise into a transform 2D. And divide that by 2. I know this is very repetitive and nothing too crazy is going on, but like I said, it'll really show with the roughness added. Nope, that's fine. And a lot of the work that we're laying down here are going to be used in the next video, because we're going to be using these guys for the roughness. So we're knocking out 2 birds, 1 stone. Now here I did something a little fancy, and I'll show you. I'll run you guys through this afterwards. I try to use every new material to experiment with some new techniques or try some new stuff, trying to come up with a different like noise, or if I see a detail in my reference, I want to try and mimic it. So for this transform, we just divide it by 2 twice. Then here we have a subtract. Set to multiply. Okay, so what we did here was we started with some spots, some grunge spots like this. And then what I wanted to do was kind of cut a hole inside. My goal was to try and capture, if we look at our references here, details like this, where you can see that this is a shape, but on the inside, it's almost like it's being cut away, and it's actually rougher around the edges like this. So I wanted to try and do something like that. So, like I said, I started with the spots. Then we beveled the original grunt spots. Then we scanned it to make the inner shape. Then we blurred it a little bit. Meanwhile, down here we were I think we could do this better. Because the problem I'm seeing here is that it's not really conforming because the original spots are being warped, but the insides isn't. And so the inside's staying in place while the other one's getting warped. So what we can do, okay, so this needs to go over here. There we go. Yeah, because we need to do the warp first, then the bevel. That way the bevel takes the warping. So we'll just fix this a bit. We'll do it like this. Yeah, see, sometimes when I do the tutorial, I notice some things. I'm like, should have done that, not done that way. Okay, so then, yeah, so now we get this, which is much better than before. And then here, I try to get rid of some of it, or darken some, using multiplying by this, which is what we used for our warp. Just to kind of darken some of them and make some stand out more, because right now these are all like evenly sticking out. So then this way some stick out more than others. And then that's how we do that. And let's see the difference. Let me find one of these guys. You can see them right there. We could probably be a little bit brighter on this. Let's go with like 5.3. And again, it's not going to be as noticeable right now because it's just in the base color, but it'll definitely be noticeable in the roughness. Okay, now we're going to do another grunge spots. Let's change the seed. Transform 2D. We just divided by 2 again, just to get more tiling on it. Same thing, we're going to slow blur it with a gradient to kind of give it the dragging down effect, very subtle. Then we're going to go with a Perlin noise. 2 levels. And then we're going to multiply it for the same effect to try and get rid of some of them. Or, you know, bring some of them backwards into the background. Let's set the copy as usual. Let's make sure we connect it. Now we're adding these guys in here. Probably go even a little bit brighter. Alright, now we're going to move on down. We're getting ready to do the grout now. Start with a blend, set the copy. Let's just set it up. Now here, I'm going to do, I think this is the end of this guy. And now it's the age of this guy. Another uniform color, left at 2K. Those are the settings for that. And this is going to go into the top. And then for the opacity, we're going to pull from our grout mask. So from the green, and now that's going to be our base color for the grout. So just a solid color. And now we have this. Now similar to the previous uniform color we did, I'm going to just do a little branch out here and start the road for that. And then from here, whoops, that's going to go into an HSL. And then we have another blend. Okay, and then we're going to need something in the opacity. And for this one, we are going to pull from our grout dips, which is number 10. From before the levels, as usual. And it's going to go into a levels. And then for that, we're just going to bring the level out height to 0.3. Actually, we're just going to bring it all the way up. So now what it's doing, it's using the this information, because this is where our grout dips and stuff. So for the deep ends, it's going to get darker. It's almost as if like dirt and grime and stuff accumulated down there. So I want it to be a little bit darker just to get some more variation. And since I just opened up this project, we're going to make sure that we turn up our tessellation factor. I'm going to go with 6. Okay. Then we need a Perlin noise. The levels into a blend. And this is going to go into, we're going to need a new uniform for this one. These are the settings for that one. And then we need to plug something in over here. And that is going to be our usual grout mask, I believe. It's going to go on the top. Yeah, because we want to multiply out the tiles from this. So you can see here that some of our dips are going to be darker. Just again to get more variation. Minor details. And then for this one, we're going to be pulling from number 11, just before the levels. We get those crevices are going to be a little darker. And then this step is pretty repetitive. We're just taking our height information and adding color to it. For this one, it's going to be 12 before the levels. Now we're getting this stuff here. These are also, all these blends are set to copy, just in case I missed one. Then this one's coming from 13, the grout holes. Then this one's going to come from number 14. Just 0.2 on the level out high. This one's very subtle. Then this one's going to come from 15, this next one. These are our little tiny specks there. Then we need 16. So look about here. So 16 for the levels. And then for this part, it's going to be a little bit different. I think that's the end of this road here, so we're going to backspace that guy. And now here we need this guy from before. Like that. And then here we need an ambient occlusion after 16. So here's 16, so anywhere afterwards, so I'm just going to put it here. Going to do an ambient occlusion. Then after this, we're going to do an invert grayscale. And for the ambient occlusion, we're going to do 0.025. And then we're going to invert it. Then we're going to blend it. Blended by our grout mask. Multiply to get rid of the anything outside of the grout. Again, just minor difference here. And if you want to make it more, you can, feel free to change it. And now we need 17. Oh, perfect. No HSL for this one, just plug it right in and then 17. Okay, and then the next one's 18. This one I left the same. I don't know if I showed this one, but and then that's for these little specks that are outside. Yeah, for example, this guy here. So it's almost like when they were placing these tiles, some of the grout got on the tiles. And it hardened and it's there forever. Okay. Alright, we're almost done with base color, guys. I know this one's a little drier, but it'll really shine. Pun not intended with the roughness. It's this guy. I'm so hungry. I gotta go food shopping after this. Okay. And then this is gonna come from 19. More specs. So now these guys have color. Okay. Then we're moving on. Now here I have another uniform color, which I should actually downgrade this. I think I forgot to. Downgrade to 16 by 16. Up here, output size. And then for this one, we need the 20. Number 20, number 20. I think it's nicer now that I've labeled these. Because not only do I notice or do I know where it comes from faster, but also help you guys keep track. Okay, so what did this do? Okay, so that's these guys. Okay, this is the last hard part here. Not really that hard, but start with the grunge leaks. These are gonna be like the white streaks. Let me show you the reference. Kind of like these guys here. So I tuned a grunge leaks here. Then I transformed 2D. I didn't scale it or anything. I just moved it. So it was like here, and I moved it over here. So you can just move that wherever you'd like. Then I did a sharpen by just 0.25 into a levels. Oops. Like so. And then we're going to go into a blend. And then we need another grunge leaks. But notice for this one, it's a different random seed than this one because I don't want them to be exactly the same. And we're just going to do basically what we did up here again, except moving some things around. So this one's moved a little differently. But then we're also going to sharpen afterwards. And yeah, the sharpen's a little different. It's 0.5. I don't remember if I showed this level. I think I did. And then the other one's same levels. And they're going to blend together into a max lighten. Then we're going to warp it with a Perlin noise with a warp of intensity of 0.4. Like that. And let's downscale this one because I forgot again. And now we have our streaks. So what we did, like I said, we just created the shape We took the grunge leaks to get something that looks like it. We moved it to somewhere where it's a little bit more noticeable, so like the center. Then I sharpened it a bit. Then I pushed it to I lowered the opacity. And then since I had two of them, I max light is an addition type of blend mode. So I added them together. And then I used the warp again so it doesn't go straight down. Just to kind of give it a little bit of a shape, kind of like it's moving around while dripping. And then we gave it a color. Alright, and then for the fun part, the finishing touches, something I do on most of my graphs. We're going to do a normal. And this is going to come from after 21. Because we want everything to be in it. Then we're going to do a curvature smooth. Now, I did run into a problem here. Something I haven't seen before. Oh, let me see if I can replicate it. It's not doing it this time. But basically, this only happened with a curvature smooth. It didn't happen with curvature or curvature Sobel. And basically what it was is it had like this weird gradient around it. And I think if it happens to you, you'll know what I mean. Because this is what it should look like, right? Um, and I looked that up, and it had happened to some people. I don't know why. I checked what I thought would cause it, and everything was fine. But basically, the solution was because by default, when you do a curvature smooth, the tiling mode or the inheritance type is set to relative to input. So what it means that the tiling mode should be relative to whatever is before it. Um, and all you have to do is change this to absolute, and then this is like changing the method to manual. So it's saying I'm gonna manually decide what I want to do with it. So just by changing it to absolute, it fixed it. And that's what I did here. So I didn't even change any of the tiling mode because I wanted to tile. I just changed it to absolute, and then that weird thing was gone. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens sometimes, but if it happens to you, that's how you solve it. And then we're gonna do a gradient afterwards, leaving the gradient the same. Then we're gonna do a blend, put that on top. And we're gonna change this to overlay, and we're gonna do 0.35. Feel free to change it if you want it more. Let's see the difference here. Just kind of highlighting and enhancing. It kind of gives it more depth because it darkens it. So it looks more grounded. Or grouted. Hehe. Then we're going to do a curvature Sobel. And for the normal, we're doing 2.5, by the way. To bring it out a little bit more. And we're almost done here. It's going to go into a gradient. This one's set to overlay as well as this one, but this one's going to be a lower value because this is more noticeable. So if you look at the difference between these two, this one's like a little bit blurred, a little softer, a little smoother, and then this one's a little harsher. And this captures all of our details. And that's because of our normal. If our normal is set to very weak, you can see the details are kind of lost and it won't really show up as much. But the higher this is, the more the details will show up. But you also don't want to go too high. Let's go with like 3. Let's go with 4. And then, as usual, I like to do a little sharpen at the end of it. And we're gonna go with like 0.25. Just kind of make it pop. Alright, so there we go. And of course, if we go back into our height for fun, and we change the grout height, and we lower it, everything will adjust. And obviously the same if we go up. Actually, it'll cover some of them. But yeah, don't go too high, because then you'll get this. I think at this point you would want them to be broken, like cracked and broken, rather than, because this wouldn't happen. But yeah. Alright guys, that was the end of base color. I'll see you guys on the next one for roughness, where it's actually more fun than this one. Take care.